With me now, NBC senior congressional correspondent Garrett Haake. He's been following the early days of the former president's 2024 campaign. Anna Palmer is here. She's the founder and CEO of Punchbowl News, also an NBC News contributor. Democratic strategist Doug Thornell and Republican strategist Matt Gorman. Garrett, I want to start with you. Whatever the Trump campaign is.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's always funny. I'm sure you've had this experience. You talk with somebody close to the campaign, and they're like, well, as of right now, I think it's this. Mm-hmm. It's always an as of right now, or as far as I know. You may know different because I haven't talked to him. I mean, it is the strangest campaign, even for Trump. Even by Trump standards, it's a strange campaign.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when he ran in 2016, he at least sort of modeled the campaign around his business, which was its own weird structure, but there was a structure to it. I mean, campaign staffers don't even have email addresses yet. There's really no such thing as a functional campaign around him at this point. It is largely a collection of grievances kind of running. And of all the things you mentioned, I think the only sort of pushback I would give to any of that is the only thing that I think is probably more positive for this than negative is actually the special counsel appointment, because I think what we're seeing in the early days of this campaign, such as it is a sort of a campaign about victimhood. And if he can sort of rally people around this idea that he is being targeted, he's really good politically at being a victim. And I think that's what we're going to see in the near term.
All right, but why can't he condemn the artist formerly known as Kanye West?
Because he said nice things about him. I mean, this is one of the truisms of Donald Trump from his public career and his private career is he's never been good at condemning people, no matter what terrible things they said otherwise. If they said nice things about him, that's generally, if you say good things about Trump, that's generally good enough for Trump, and it's always been the case.
Anna, what's your sense of the level of patience among elected Republicans around here for him? I mean, we know what it is off the record. Are we going to see more of them not named Mitt Romney speaking out against him?
I think we have, right? It used to be they would say the quiet part, you know, behind on the halls in Congress and in one-on-one conversations. And now you really are starting to see it's not just Mitch McConnell, who clearly has not had any love for Trump in a very long time, but you're starting to see other Republicans tire, whether it's saying, hey, you know what, we don't want a three-time loser. It's time to look forward. We need to be more forward-looking. I don't think they're ready to just dump him completely because every Republican that's elected is still concerned about the Trump support and the base, and they need them for their own political future, but they are being a little bit more forceful.
Look, I think I have this poll number here, Matt Gorman, which is the number we've been tracking since he was president. Do you consider yourself a Republican before a Trump supporter or a Trump supporter before a Republican? And we've recorded him at 30%, which is the lowest he's been recorded. It had, you know, gotten almost that low right after January 6th, popped back up. It was as high as 54 during his presidency. Is 30 the ceiling or the floor now inside the Republican Party for Trump?
It seems to be a very slippery ceiling. Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit a few days ago, but I think the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is indifference. And I think what you're starting to see is the people who voted for him in 2016 and in both general elections, liked him as president, liked what he did, suddenly saying, you know, they've had their fill. They've become indifferent to him. They want to move on a little bit. And I think it's not going to be the Lincoln Project crew. It's not going to be the Mitt Romneys, never Trumpers. The people that will end Trump in the Republican Party will be those people.
But 30% still wins you a primary or a
well,
lot
that's
of
the thing. If it's 30, what if it's
race?
not 30, right?
But, yeah. That's not support, though. That's Trump Republican. And you can consider Pence or more Pompeo Trump Republican.
You know, I think we're in the Gary Busey phase of The Apprentice. Right? When it was like Gary Busey was the star of The Apprentice, that's when you knew the show, you know, the whole thing was ending.
Yeah.
It was coming to an end.
This is like season 6 of a show.
Right. It feels like this whole bizarre, he will not, I mean, Elon Musk is condemning Kanye West, okay? And Donald Trump won't.
Yeah. Well, I have to laugh a little bit because I feel like this is a conversation we all have had so many times over the years.
Since the summer of 2015, and he said John McCain was no hero to me.
Right.
Well, since that moment, we've had this conversation.
And we've also had the conversation about, well, you know, the Republicans are finally, like, starting to separate, right? You thought Charlottesville would be the moment when that would happen. You thought maybe when Trump incited an insurrection against this country and had all his followers take over the Capitol. I'm not buying this yet, you know, because at the same time, you still look at polls. Morning Consult has a poll out that has, you know, Trump still leading. And at the end of the day, he still has a very strong hold over this party. Democrats won a lot of these races in 22, largely by painting them as extremists. And that's playing out right now. And for Kevin McCarthy, who a month ago was thinking about November being such an amazing month for him, this has not only been a bad month for Trump, it's been an awful month for Republicans.
It really has.
Awful.
No, I think that's the question here, that the party is being associated with anti-Semites. It's not just Donald Trump. Like, isn't that the flashing red light here?
I was really surprised because, to your point, one person we didn't mention was Rick Scott, who's really taken pains to align himself with Trump throughout this whole last 2 years. He was one of the first people. He was talking, I think, to you guys on the Hill on Monday, separating himself. And I think you're absolutely right. Like, and also, again, McCarthy's comments I thought went very far. That is an issue, I think, and that's why you're seeing people come out so strongly.
And you know who hasn't said anything is DeSantis. Now, I know there's a strategy behind it, but he hasn't said anything.
Not a word.
He doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm with you in the sense that I would say this, is that I think everybody has been very quick to say Donald Trump, this is the fall of Trump, and he is Teflon, and it has been. The question is, you know, if people think that he's a winner or will help them in their House races or in their primaries, he's not going to go away.
I want to come back to something, though, that reinforces your point, Doug. The Republican Jewish Coalition statement. I want to bring it back again when they're condemning Kanye West.
Brutal.
Conservatives who have mistakenly indulged Kanye West must make it clear that he is a pariah. Enough is enough. Conservatives?
Yeah.
Is it conservatives?
Well,
or is it Donald Trump?
It's not just Donald Trump.
But okay, if it wasn't for Donald Trump, but for...
There's another show that happens in this building on another network.
No doubt.
Exactly. They put him on TV.
But he's not president of the United States and probably never will be. I think we all have to question. We'll question
set that aside, please.
But the point is, he's not an elected official.
No.
The person mainstreaming Kanye West is the former president of the United States.
I agree, and a whole host of House Republicans jumped on that bandwagon, and there's a cultural affinity here. Kanye and House Republicans and Trump have the same enemies, or had the same enemies, and I think that was the reason they liked him, right? This idea of if you're a sort of cancel culture, woke mob, whatever, Kanye's on our side against those people. Now they're seeing who else Kanye's side he is on, and it's no longer acceptable. So yeah, I mean, look, Trump's going to be the one who's ultimately going to have to sign the divorce papers there for the rest of the party, but the rest of the party is out the door on Kanye.
Matt, I want to go back to, because I agree, we all know what the strategy of DeSantis is. It's not to speak out, right? Like, you know, don't, like, try to let Trump punch himself out.
Didn't work in 2016.
Well, but, you know, I don't see why it's seen as a loser to condemn Kanye West.
I think a couple things, and I'm trying to put myself in his shoes right now. I think, A, if you're DeSantis, you're looking at it, and I actually think in his mind he'll be punching down. I think you don't want it. Why pick a fight when your guy's speeding up? Why push somebody if he's speeding off a cliff at 90 miles an hour and going at this, right?
No, I understand that about Trump.
But what I'm saying is essentially by coming out in that, you're making it a DeSantis-Trump fight. And then all of a sudden, candidly, the news becomes the DeSantis-Trump proxy war and less Trump.
No, that's a fair point.
But I've heard from some Republican strategists when they're talking about the upcoming primary that the only way that someone's going to beat Trump is if they take him on and beat him up. And so, you know, maybe DeSantis wants to wait.
Yeah, because the people that do, who are the people that like Trump? That he's willing to take the fight. Yeah. That he is willing to piss you off and me off, right? And so, the person that replaces him, and that's what makes DeSantis seem so appealing.
I also think DeSantis is trying to go after some of those same votes, right?
Correct.
Look,
that's what I mean.
DeSantis was Trump's water boy in 2018.
Right.
So let's not forget how closely aligned he was.
Which is what would make him an interesting person to be the one to take him out.
He is Trump without the distraction.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he did send a...
I am so not convinced about Ron DeSantis. This guy has never done a national interview. He's never sat in front of the national press in any way. He's never talked to a human being in another state that's not Florida. At some point, some one person has to beat Donald Trump. The Major League Baseball can't beat the Yankees, right? Like, the Red Sox have to go beat the Yankees. Right. Some one person has to consolidate this and go beat Trump. And I have not seen anything from DeSantis that suggests he can do that over the course of an 8-month, 9-month primary.
And the strategy of, we'll just let him hang himself. Like, that didn't work in 2016.
Cool. Ask President Jeb.
We're coming...
Sorry.
Wow. close to the bone.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Look, I think in terms of the point before, again, if you're thinking about this strategically, two things. We're about a month out from the midterm elections. There's a long way to go if you're DeSantis before you take the fight to Trump. And you also want to do it on your issues. That's COVID. You want to find the strategic set of issues. You don't chase down every rabbit hole. That's what Trump wants. He wants fights on all fronts. You go after him strategically, and you can do it on something like COVID.
Yeah. I guess the one question I have is, on one hand, Trump is vulnerable now. Trump is weak now. Are they going to regret missing this moment? I know there's a lot of people saying, hold off. I think they're going to let him heal, and I don't know if that's going
Nobody votes for a year. How do you beat him now?
Well, you marginalize him.
But also, there's no rallies. He's not doing anything to build himself back up.
No, that's
right.
Which I think is the most telling.
Yes.
Right?
Well, do you think how many people would show up for a Trump rally? I'm not. Look, some will, but I think that is something they fear that maybe they can't fill the rooms that they used to be able to fill.
Well, the other
He's
thing
not
is,
in Georgia.
No, he's not.
I also think like Kevin McCarthy right now is trying to figure out how he can put together enough votes to become speaker. And there are a lot of Republicans, I think, and so I think he's got to. I think. I know he said what he said, but at the same time, I think he's probably going to go to get, at some point he'll go kiss Trump's ring again.
We have two really good nose counters here. When it comes to First of all, do we have Ralph Norman's anonymous candidate? Just wait. The man behind the curtain, Ralph Norman, claims we have a great candidate. You'll not heard it. He's not a member of the House. Do we know who it is yet, Anna?
I have not heard who it is yet.
It's not you, Matt. Is it Lee Zeldin?
I mean, listen, I think there's still a lot of time for Kevin McCarthy to put this together. And I would say he's been very strategic, and he's doing exactly what he needs to do so far to get there, in the sense of letting all these conservatives have these votes. Let's the air out of the kind of the anxiety around. Matt Gaetz is not leading the promised land of Republicans to another speaker. There is no one else. It's not going to be Steve Scalise.
Why?
I think people underestimate how closely their political lives have been tied.
I agree with that. But if the whole point of this, Garrett, is not to find another speaker, it's just to prove they can deny McCarthy the speakership, I think that's all they want to prove, because it basically is a threat to the next speaker. At any point in time, we can deny you the speakership.
That requires a level of strategic forethought that the Freedom Caucus has not, to this point, demonstrated that they have. I mean, yes, do I think they can blow things up? Yes, but I also think they don't have an actual plan to do this other than to delay. And I think the kind of delay gives McCarthy an opportunity to pick people off.
But to me, that's how Scalise ends up
closer.
with it. They want to be able, their easy out is, okay, fine, we'll rally around Scalise. We just wanted to prove that McCarthy.
That it wasn't him?
Yeah.
I don't see it.
To your point, McCarthy's not prepared. He's very patient, to your point. He gets a bum rap, but he's very patient.
Yeah.
I still think of the Holy Grail moment in Last Crusade. Let it go, son. Let it go. Every time McCarthy gets close to it, somehow the black hole of politics will grab him. Anyway, this was terrific. I didn't have to say much. You guys.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.